November 28th, 9:22 a.m.
25 seconds, and counting. Atlas on internal power. 10. Gina ready, switch on. Spacecraft to internal power. 5. Cleared to launch. We're counting. Engine start. Ignition. Liftoff. Switch up. Roger. 1-3 seconds. We're on our way. Roger.
There were 7 other scientific experiments on board, and it takes a lot of teamwork to plan and execute a flight like this.
Of all the planets in the sky, this is one of the most intriguing because it seems most like Earth. This is what it looks like when it's 35 million miles from Earth and photographed through a telescope. It's the planet Mars. At one polar region is a white area. Is it snow, or ice, or something else? The dark patches vary in size and color. Are they vegetation of some kind that changes with the seasons? Scientists have been asking such questions for many years. Finding the answers has been difficult because Mars comes relatively close to the Earth only once every 2 years and never any closer than 35 million miles. To find out more about Mars, scientists had to get closer to it somehow. And then, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration announced they were going to send a spacecraft across 325 million miles of space toward Mars. It would take 8 months to get there. It would make only one pass a few thousand miles from the planet, then leave Mars to orbit permanently around the sun. Could photographs be taken of Mars and sent back to Earth? It would be in camera range less than half an hour. This unusual opportunity to try to photograph Mars was welcomed.
After many meetings and a lot of give and take, we finally agreed that we should try to get a series of black and white photographs that should begin at the limb and continue across the planet to the shadowed area. The photographs should show detail at least 10 times better than any taken from Earth. The pictures would be taken in overlapping pairs, one through a green filter, the other through a red filter, to increase contrast and tell something about the colors on the planet. We designed the system to take 22 photographs.
Design and build a camera system that can travel 8 months in the cold and vacuum of space, and then take 22 close-up pictures of Mars. Break the pictures up into tiny pieces so they can be radioed, one at a time, across 135 million miles back to Earth. The camera system to do all this can weigh no more than 11 pounds and can use only 10 watts of electricity, slightly more than it takes to light a Christmas tree bulb.
With the camera at an estimated altitude of 10,000 miles or so from Mars, we needed a telescope. The red and green filters could be set into a circular shutter. With the predicted brightness of Mars, the exposure should be about 1/5 of a second. Then the shutter would be closed for 48 seconds. The Vidicon tube couldn't be pulled off the shelf. We'd have to find a special tube and design circuitry to operate the camera and tube. Then conversion to computer language using a binary code for sending back to Earth. It didn't look too bad. The tube was the scariest part.
The tube was the scariest part. He was concerned about the tube because manufacturers tried hard not to make the kind of tube he needed. Let's say this is the front of a television Vidicon tube. Now, in ordinary Vidicons, the image is needed for a very brief time, so the faster it fades away, the better. I'm going to turn out the lights and then fire this flash onto the surface of this tube. The image of my hand is stored on the surface. Denton Allen needed a Vidicon tube that could hold the image for a long time while the picture information on it was scanned and changed to code. He found what he thought was a tube that could do the job and began planning the camera system around it.
The designing of the various sub-assemblies began according to a schedule that said on June 8, 8 months from now, we're going to have ourselves a breadboard of this camera system with a slow scan Vidicon in there that works. So boy, you put that date in the back of your minds and go at it. Because if that one isn't met, by the next date down there, you're in real bad shape. You know you've got to have a bunch of amplifiers in there, and you know darn well to run this tube, you've got to have deflection circuitry. This means system design and individual circuit design going on that can withstand the rigors of the space environment. At the same time, you have to conserve power throughout because you're trying to operate the thing with 10 watts. The system also converts the picture elements into the binary code that will be sent by radio back to Earth. Of course, we had to simulate that part on the ground, then convert the binary code back into picture elements again, and hopefully reproduce the same picture we started with.
Here's a picture of a common object. You can't recognize it because all you can see are some of the dots that make up the picture. The camera system was designed to produce a picture with dots like these, 200 in a line this way and 200 in a line this way. When you can see more of the dots, they become a picture of a tennis ball. The pictures of Mars will be made up of dots too, 40,000 of them. Each of the dots in the picture has to be evaluated by the camera in terms of a grayscale represented by numbers. Black at one end with a value of 63, and white at the other with a value of 0. Let's say a sequence of dots in a row in the picture have these values. Now the numbers have to be changed to code. Black with a value of 63 becomes this in code. That's the code that's going to be sent by radio from Mars. At the receiving end, the code is changed into the proper number. Later, the number is used to duplicate the original dot, in this case, black. The camera system has to do this for every one of the 40,000 dots in each picture. With these numbers, the 40,000 different dots can be duplicated. And arranged in their proper positions to form the completed picture. On June 8th, Denton Allen's team was supposed to have the first experimental model of the entire camera system, the breadboard version, ready to produce a picture in this way.
By this time, we'd checked out the best slow scan tubes we had. Time was getting pretty short, but each engineer still had a lot of last-minute details to worry about. His sub-assembly had to be ready to work in the system. Then on June 8, we all got together and said, all right, I'll plug mine into yours, and you plug yours into somebody else's, and let's see if it works. So we put in the Vidicon, aimed it at a test pattern. We're supposed to have a picture. And after about a half hour of tweaking things up, why, these various sub-assemblies came together and generated for the first time a slow scan, completely coded and decoded picture. It was kind of climactic. We were all pretty proud of ourselves. There were a lot of congratulations, here's to the team and all that kind of stuff. It gave us a real boost. At this point, we're probably drawing 15 watts rather than 10, and you look at this stuff spread all over the table and you say, gee, 11 pounds for this whole thing? The next job is a big one. We've got to do it a little bit here and a little bit there, refining it a piece at a time. We found we could get rid of some of the circuitry without sacrificing performance. We reduced the weight an ounce at a time wherever we could. And to eliminate those 5 extra watts, we had to reduce our power consumption at every step. Finally, we built a prototype that took beautiful pictures of a test pattern in the lab. It took us about a year to work out most of the problems. Vidicons had been checked out in the environmental tests. Vibration especially was a worry. Would the tube really get that rough a ride? Could the tube itself be built stronger? Could we mount it better to reduce the vibration to the tube? One day, one of the guys looked at the stuff the tube came packed in. If it came all the way from Texas in the mail wrapped in that stuff, maybe it could get to Mars. So, over the weekend, he made a structure to support the tube using this foam material. It was not so hot at low-frequency vibration, but at high frequencies, where you really begin to worry, the foam was just a big cushion. The tube was working beautifully. All we could do was hope this was a valid test for the vibration the tube would get during liftoff. Because by this time, we couldn't make any more design changes. You're tied into so many other systems, you could affect them all. So this was the camera system that was going to Mars.
At Cape Kennedy, the instruments for the 8 scientific experiments are now being installed on the Mariner 4 spacecraft. There's the camera system on the scanning platform. You can see the telescope. Behind it, inside, is the shutter and the sticky Vidicon tube that gave them so much trouble. Even now, they're not sure it will survive the vibration during liftoff. In the camera system, there's only one mechanical device, the shutter. When current flows through this solenoid, it turns the shutter. The exposure is 1/5 of a second through the red filter. Then the shutter is closed for 48. Then the green filter for 1/5 of a second, and the shutter is closed for a longer period. Then the cycle starts again. They'd run tests on this shutter in a vacuum chamber and found there was a limit to the number of times it would turn. It was decided to replace the shutter in the camera and limit it to 1,000 exposures. During the flight, information about the engineering and scientific equipment on board is radioed back to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and displayed as numbers like this. So far during the flight, the numbers give engineering data about the spacecraft itself. But 8 weeks after liftoff, a command will be sent to remove a protective cover from the camera telescope and to check out some of the elements of the camera system. So everybody at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory was standing by, each one waiting to see how his part of Mariner 4 was functioning. Whatever was recorded on tape would be sent back to Earth very slowly. Because of the great distance and the limited power available, a little over 8 bits of code per second. It's going to take about 8 hours to send each picture back to Earth. Here's what the picture information looked like when they tested the camera system on the ground. These first 3 numbers indicated various engineering checks, and the last 3 numbers, the actual engineering data. When these numbers changed to 500, that was picture information from the first line of the first picture. Here were the grayscale values of each one of the dots in line 1. This is what they're expecting to see if there's any picture information on the tape recorder 135 million miles out in space.
So the next morning, about 5 o'clock, we were expecting the first picture numbers to come up. So we watch the numbers, and all we see is black for the first 6 lines. Which which is what the first 6 lines are supposed to be. I had clued them in on this. But on line 7, we'd better start looking to see if things were not going to be 63s anymore. And, sure enough, those numbers came out. The director of JPL, Dr. Pickering, was there. So were Layton, Murray, Sloan, everybody. This was really exciting. As soon as the guys had a bunch of numbers, they would tear off the sheet from the printer, run off to another room, and paste it up on a board. Then they had guys painting these numbers with colored chalk. It really got to be a big thing. People all over JPL got wind of this. Just hundreds of people came to see this first picture of Mars.
Mariner 4 successfully carried out the scientific investigation of Mars. It sent back approximately 18 million scientific measurements, information about the interplanetary magnetic field, cosmic dust, solar wind and flares, and other deep space phenomena. And it took 22 pictures of Mars. Here they are. What do the pictures mean to Dr. Layton and the other scientists and engineers who initiated the experiment?
Even this limited view we have of Mars can still give us something definite to relate to Earth and the Moon, because the most important information in the Mars pictures comes from the craters, which seem to be large in number. If the Mariner sample is representative of the Martian surface, the total number of craters of the sizes so far observed is more than 10,000, compared to a mere handful on Earth. There are many subtle features in the craters that will take some time to study in detail. They seem remarkably well preserved, which suggests that Mars has had only a thin atmosphere for many hundreds of millions of years. If the Martian surface is truly primitive, it may prove to be the best, if not the only place in the solar system still preserving clues to its original development. We believe the Mariner photos will profoundly affect the scientific views about the origin and evolution of the planetary bodies in the solar system.
The photographs of Mars are now available to scientists throughout the world. They've achieved striking results by studying photographs that cover only 1% of the Martian surface. The other 99% remains a mystery